I'm Chloe, 34 years old, and I live with my husband Ethan, who's a year older than me, and our daughter Mia, who's about to turn 5. We are a family of 3. For some reason, I have been running into troublesome situations quite frequently over the past few years. Take, for instance, when Mia had just started walking. She would change her mind constantly, wanting to walk by herself one moment and be carried the next. I was hurrying home from the supermarket dealing with her whims. Suddenly, a woman walking towards us stopped us, claiming that my child had stepped on her foot as we passed by. I was shocked and apologized, but the woman wasn't satisfied. She told me not to let my child walk alone if I couldn't control her. Trying to keep things calm, I kept apologizing, but then she started demanding money for shoe cleaning and medical treatment for her foot. However, I had been careful to pull my daughter's hand towards me to avoid colliding with the woman who had walked straight towards my daughter. I was reluctant to pay, sensing something off, and people began to stop and watch us, as it was evening and the street was fairly busy. Shall I call the police? A kind-looking high school girl offered to help just as Ethan, who was on his way home, called out to me from behind. "Chloe, what's going on?" As I began to explain the situation to Ethan, the woman quickly left, perhaps realizing she was at a disadvantage now that my husband was there. "It's a good thing I came home on time today. You were really unlucky." "Indeed, I'm glad you were there, Ethan. Thank you." Another incident happened on a different day. It was a holiday morning and I left Mia with Ethan to go to the bakery. A woman appeared as if she had been waiting for me and persistently demanded that I hand over what I had bought. Ethan happened to be following me as Mia had begged him to, and he arrived just in time to fend her off. That was scary. I'm so glad Ethan came. "You really are unlucky, Chloe. I can't always be there to help you, so be careful." I often find myself being followed by strange women, but I feel very reassured to have Ethan bravely fend them off. Today, I'm driving to my parents' house. Ethan loves Mia and me, and we usually go out as a family, but unfortunately, he has to stay home this time. Every year, we spend New Year's Eve at my in-laws' house and then visit my parents, but Ethan's work has been piling up, and we have had to postpone our visit, so Mia and I are going alone. I talked to my daughter, who's sitting in the booster seat. I reattached to the front seat for today. Daddy's missing out, huh? Grandma said she bought lots of strawberries because she knows you and Daddy love them. Will Grandma give us some to take home? Sure, if Mia doesn't eat them all. Our girls' drive is filled with talk about Ethan. After driving for a while, we parked the car in a convenience store parking lot. We used the restroom and bought orange juice and a small bag of biscuits, which are my daughter's recent favorite snacks. She's planning to share them with Grandpa and holds them carefully as we return to the car. "Mia, do you want to drink some juice now? It's dangerous to do it while the car is moving." I spoke to my daughter before fastening her booster seatbelt. However, my daughter shakes her head, saying that the biscuits are a gift for father and the juice is for mother. I'm pleased with her thoughtfulness and offer her some water I brought from home instead. After giving her a drink, I settle back into my seat ready to depart when I notice my shoelace has come undone. Oh, wait a minute, honey. Mommy's shoe was about to come off. I get out of the car to retie my shoelace. I also take the opportunity to stretch my tired body from the long drive before getting back into the car, where I find my daughter quietly looking at something in her hands. "Mia?" When I call her, I see that she's holding the dashcam. It came off. She's been playing with it and the recorder is playing back today's car ride at double speed. "I told you this isn't a toy." I try to stop it but press the wrong button since I usually don't check the footage. The image switches and Ethan appears on the small monitor. "Oh, I made a mistake. Daddy's on there, but I wonder when this was." As I casually look at the screen and reach for another button, an unfamiliar male enters the car in the video, and the conversation that follows is shocking. What does this conversation mean? I stop the playback and suggest to my daughter that we take a little break, putting on an anime DVD that's still in the navigation system. After confirming that she's happily watching her favorite anime, I nervously play the dashcam footage again, listening to the conversation between Ethan and an unknown male on a day he was supposed to be at work. After watching everything, I change our destination from my parents' house to the nearby police station and rush there. A surprised police officer checks the dashcam footage with me and advises that it's not yet time to take action, but suggests that I take the matter seriously and take refuge at my parents' house for a while. I'm told to consult them if anything changes. and I head to my parents' house with an unsettled heart. Originally, we planned to stay for 2 nights to coincide with my daughter's preschool, but after explaining the situation to my parents, we continue to stay. As the days go by, messages from Ethan pile up, but I follow my father's advice and don't respond. Once everything is ready, I time it for when Ethan should be home from work and call him. I tell him I have something to discuss and invite him to a restaurant owned by a friend of my father's, which we have reserved for the evening.
Good evening.
Ethan opened the door to a restaurant where only a reserved sign is displayed and seems a bit relieved when our eyes meet. But he soon seems puzzled that it's just my father and me and our daughter isn't with us. He takes a seat at my father's urging, but there's no sign of any staff and even water isn't served. The strange atmosphere seems to make Ethan a bit nervous and he looks around the restaurant. I have no room to notice such things, and with a voice that's almost trembling, I say to Ethan, "Please, divorce me."
What?
Ethan, suddenly confronted with a demand for divorce, shows confusion and refusal, apparently having no idea why.
A divorce? What's going on all of a sudden? Did I do something? I have no idea what you're talking about.
I already feel fear just facing Ethan like this, and I can't look him straight in the eye. But I've asked my father to watch over us as much as possible, as I want to talk to Ethan myself to make him understand. Feeling my father's watchful gaze, I pull my mobile phone out of my pocket. Can you look at this? The dashcam footage from the car is displayed on it. Ethan starts watching the video with a puzzled look, and when he realizes what it is, he falls silent. In the quiet restaurant, the conversation between Ethan and an unknown male plays from the mobile phone.
You really don't have to hit her. Just threaten her a bit and she'll easily get scared. What if you really hit her? Don't worry, you can do that. I'll join you later and invite you to dinner. So just approach her in the family restaurant's parking lot. When Chloe takes out her mobile phone or you grab her collar, I'll run in like I just arrived.
Ethan in the recording occasionally smiles but continues to talk seriously. This man who is instructing an unknown male to attack my daughter and me, and even planning the scenario where he comes to our rescue, is my husband sitting right in front of me. Realizing this again, I finally start to tremble. Moreover, from the conversation, I understand that this wasn't the first time my husband had instructed someone to harass us. In fact, the strange women who had bothered us before were also sent by Ethan, all part of a scheme to raise his own stock by conveniently rescuing us in our time of need. Recently, we had started to get used to being harassed by women, even imitating Ethan's method of repelling them, so now he had sent a man to save us from even greater fear, apparently to further boost his reputation. From the footage, I knew that the plan was for the day we were to return from our visit, so we had been staying at my parents' house all this time. Ethan finishes watching the video in silence, then rests his chin on his hand deep in thought. Seeing that he doesn't move, my father quietly opens his mouth.
Do you have anything to say?
Then Ethan slowly lifts his face and lets out a thin sigh.
Chloe, what are you trying to do by creating this video? Father-in-law, this is a fabrication. The voice does sound like mine, but I don't know this man, and the content is baseless. Come to think of it, you've been harassed by strange women before. You must be having some weird delusions from stress. I should have been more careful with you.
Ethan bows his head slightly to my father. I exchange glances with my father and sigh. We will submit this footage as evidence to the police. Ethan has always been kind to us, but there have been many times when I felt he was just putting on a facade. So I expected him to try to deceive us somehow and win over my father, and that's exactly what happened. Hearing my clear declaration, Ethan's attitude changes instantly.
The police? Don't mess with me. Are you trying to ruin my life?
With a loud crash, the chair falls over. Ethan, who has stood up, draws back his fist to strike me. The moment I brace myself, my father and his friend, who had been hiding and waiting, grab Ethan and restrain him. More men who were hiding in the restaurant appeared one after another, and Ethan quickly became subdued due to their overwhelming presence. Actually, the reason we chose this restaurant for the discussion was at my father's suggestion, and the owner, who is a friend of my father's, had offered to help. The owner, a retired police officer who opened the restaurant, is not only strong himself, but also has many well-built acquaintances. In case Ethan tried to carry out his plan in front of my father and send the male to attack, they were ready to subdue Ethan even before he made his move. and they were also prepared to act as witnesses to make the divorce proceedings go smoothly. I am truly grateful to everyone who helped me, as I had never been subjected to violence before and wouldn't have been able to respond on the spot. Afterward, Ethan, surrounded by my father's friends, reluctantly signed the divorce papers I presented to him, unable to resist or deceive any longer. I later reported Ethan's behavior during our discussion to the police, but contrary to my expectations, their response was slow. Since I wasn't actually hit and the only evidence of Ethan's planned scheme was the dashcam footage, and it was also an attempted crime, there was no satisfactory result from the consultation. Given the difficulty of explaining the victimization and the fact that it was an incident between a married couple, I was unable to obtain a satisfactory result from the consultation, even though I was able to get a divorce. Furthermore, I was given the runaround, having to explain the same situation to different officers and finally being told to consult at the police station in my home jurisdiction. Completely worn out, I gave up and decided to return to my parents' house. As I was about to open the door to my parents' house in despair, I was pulled back with great force. Stumbling and turning around, I found Ethan standing there.
If you do just come back, everything will be back to normal. I won't tolerate any more selfishness.
Ethan forcefully pulled me, trying to get me into his car. As I shouted and resisted desperately, my mother, suspicious of the noise, came out to see what was happening. Then Ethan, noticing her, went into the house without even looking at her and tried to take our daughter. As my daughter and I were about to be forcibly shoved into the car and we resisted along with my mother, a neighbor must have called the police and an officer arrived. But Ethan, either already enraged or unafraid, struck the approaching officer, trying to calm him down. As a result, he was arrested for assault, violent behavior, and obstruction of law enforcement, and we had to visit the police station again that day to explain the situation. Although we were released immediately, Ethan would probably be in police custody for about 10 days. So I hurriedly arranged the move I had been planning and applied for personal information protection at the city office. My parents also decided to give up their home, whose location was known, and move to a rental property owned by my grandfather. Thus, a series of events that unexpectedly came to light with Ethan's arrest finally settled down. Ethan initially claimed during the investigation that he wanted to protect my daughter and me, that he wanted to be our hero, but the woman he had sent to harass us denied this when questioned. They said it was all part of his self-promotion. Ethan, the youngest of 6 siblings, apparently had rarely had things go his way since he was little. That's why after getting married and starting a family, he wanted to reign supreme, to have complete control over his wife and daughter. In the end, all the talk of being a hero was just lip service. He was only thinking about creating an image of himself as a protector, someone his family could rely on. His real goal was to control us by saying he would protect us, so we should obey him. Even his kindness to my daughter and me was all just to boost how others saw him. There was no love for us, just a terrifying realization that we were merely props in his performance. Now I truly feel relieved that I have gotten away from him. Ethan was later only found guilty of obstructing official duties, although I was dissatisfied that only the charge against the police officer was acknowledged. In the end, Ethan was arrested, so there was no one else to tell. Then a father's friend said,
What if the husband had intended to harm his wife and children, not just kidnap them? We couldn't get any cooperation in advance, but what if the children had been taken away because we were late this time? What if another incident occurred while we were passing the buck? Are we going to ignore something that could be prevented if no actual harm has occurred?
Thanks to the warning to the active junior police officers, I feel a bit better now. Now my daughter and I are free from strange women, starting fresh and enjoying our life as a mother and daughter in a new place. My daughter seems to think that Ethan is just staying at the old house because he's busy with work, but when she's older, I plan to tell her about the divorce, keeping the details hidden. Peaceful days without the ex-husband knowing our information? The days ahead with my daughter will surely be wonderful.